It's been nearly 3 months since some important changes in the real estate industry have required my peers and I to adjust the way we conduct business. These changes were made in response to an antitrust lawsuit involving the National Association of Realtors, of which I am a member. Of course, in my roles as a realtor, I've implemented the mandated changes and have taken the lead on educating many buyers and sellers, including my friend Mara, who presented me with some important questions in anticipation of her home buying journey. I decided to share our conversation with you in hopes that it satisfies some questions and concerns you may have about these changes. Take a listen.
Yeah, so I've just been hearing a lot about real estate in big headlines all year. And the biggest one I've been hearing is about buyer compensation and how I, as a buyer, need to come up with the funds to pay you when maybe traditionally before, I think it was set up a little bit differently. Can you explain the difference?
Right. Historically, when a consumer decided to sell their home, they hired a listing agent. They negotiated a compensation, and that compensation was shared with the buyer's brokerage and advertised on our multiple listing service. The first change is that has gone away. The compensation for buyer's agents and buyer's brokerages is not being advertised on the multiple listing service. That's one thing. But surprisingly, it's made the process more transparent, because what is come in its place is the opportunity for buyers to be protected when they're working with a buyer's agent through an agreement. In said agreement, we negotiate compensation. In other words, the fee that's being paid to the buyer's brokerage when they help a buyer successfully purchase a home. There are other terms in it that speak specifically to the roles and responsibilities of a buyer's broker, which basically makes us work extra hard to make sure that we satisfy your needs, per usual. And lastly, it gives you the ability to provide your agent authorization to work on your behalf. Now, I know that we've talked offline, and I know that your concern is I have limited cash for down payment. And in this scenario, there is a chance that a seller might not want to negotiate with a buyer to pay the buyer's broker's compensation, which is another change that's happening in the industry. When you write your purchase agreements to purchase a home, you're going to be asking the seller to cover the compensation for the buyer's brokerage, which has historically been the trend. Thankfully, in the San Francisco Bay Area, that hasn't changed that much. But there could be a moment where you fall in love with a home and the seller tells you, I don't want to pay your buyer's brokerage. There is a way that we can handle that, in that we can actually write your offer to be padded to include the buyer's broker's compensation, and we can ask the seller to credit you that so that you can then pay your buyer's brokerage. That basically is you satisfying the agreement that we have in place with one another. A quick point of emphasis here. Buyer brokerage compensations are now being negotiated as a term in the residential purchase agreement. This means that when a buyer presents a seller with an offer to purchase their home, if said buyer would like that owner to cover the cost of the compensation, the buyer must formally request that a seller cover the cost of buyer agent fees. While many consumers in the San Francisco Bay Area are offering home buyers concessions to compensate their buyer's brokerage, there are no laws today nor historically requiring sellers to compensate a buyer's brokerage. It is also worth mentioning that real estate compensations are not fixed by law. They are set by each brokerage individually and may be negotiated between buyers and sellers and their respective real estate brokerage.
Okay, so it looks like there's a few options that we can work through together to make this happen. But you mentioned a form. Why do I have to sign a form so early, a contract so early in the beginning of working with you? It sounds like just another piece of paper to deal with.
Yeah, listen, I know. You and I have talked at length. You thankfully have been pre-approved. You're further along than a lot of people in this industry that want to buy a home. But you also talked about the idea that I don't know what city I want to live in. I don't know what kind of home I want. It's a concern. But you need a skilled agent. You need to authorize a skilled agent on your behalf to help you make those decisions. So that form, in addition to discussing your commitment on compensation, it will also give me the authorization to work on your behalf to get you the data you need to find your future home.
I had friends who bought earlier this year and they didn't have to sign anything binding them to an agent. Why do I need to do that now?
Yeah, well, as we've discussed, these changes that are in place currently, they happen mid-year, right? And so they have been mandated by the National Association of Realtors, of which I am a member. So legally, I'm required to get you to sign an agreement to negotiate, to include a negotiated compensation between the two of you, and for you to give me authorization to work on your behalf. I know it's a big step, but the form is written in such a way where I can actually document a few addresses that you want to take a look at to help you decide which way you want to go. It also gives me the opportunity to demonstrate to you my skill set, and my ability to get people into contract. Once I have convinced you that I'm the best fit for you, then we can get going and modify that contract to include a greater geography, enabling us to work together and for me to get you into a home. The form Mara refers to is the Buyer Representation and Broker Compensation Agreement, a legal contract between a buyer and a real estate agent outlining the terms and conditions under which an agent will represent the buyer in a home buying process. It is important to note that the buyer or the brokerage may unilaterally cancel this agreement immediately upon receipt of notice for a non-exclusive contract and 30 days after receipt of a cancellation notice for exclusive agreements.
Can't I just go directly to a listing agent and save some money that way?
So just to clarify, what you're asking is, or a scenario you're setting up is, go to the listing agent, have them negotiate the deal for you. The seller doesn't have to pay the buyer's broker's compensation, and you don't have to pay buyer broker compensation. Right. It's not an unusual step. Can I tell you some things that you should be concerned about before you decide to do that?
Yes.
Okay, so number one, when a listing brokerage and listing agent takes their listing with a seller, there's a fiduciary duty to that seller that sometimes clouds the listing agent's ability to be a full service to you, first of all. And still along those lines, once a seller signs a listing agreement with a listing agent, there is at least a 4 to 6 week lead time where they're getting to know each other. There's a relationship built. And that also, sets the stage for loyalty, right? I mean, do you want someone who's going to be loyal to you?
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So you'd want that for yourself, right?
Yes.
Of course. The other thing that you should be cognizant of as you're thinking through the strategy is that, some things that a seller tells a listing agent are confidential, and they might withhold that from you, thereby making it difficult for them to work on your behalf. So I guess what I'm defining is the possibility of there being a conflict of interest that is not in your best interest in light of the fact that you're negotiating the sale of your largest asset and
Right.
your biggest, all your nest egg that you've saved up for so many years.
So this form is really to protect me as a buyer, to make sure that I'm working with a professional who will take all these extra steps for me and make sure that I make the best possible decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. It protects you because, there is the ability for you to give me authorization to work on your behalf. It definitely sets the stage for me to level up to make sure that I do my very best to get you into a home. And it ensures that I look out for your best interest. I can't imagine anyone who does not want that in the process of purchasing a home. I hope this video satisfies a lot of the questions you have regarding the new rules of real estate. There's a lot to unpack here. So if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email or phone. My contact information is included in the video description box. I'm Darlene Perry, your San Francisco Bay Area Real Estate Connector. I'll talk to you soon.